My presentation is on the role of journalists and their practices within the state of Eritrea. And Van der Vliet said in 2011 that everyday journalists and media assistants are killed, arrested, physically attacked, media outlets shut down or censored. Eritrea is in sub-Saharan Africa, as you can see on the map, and borders with Ethiopia on the coast of the United States, just that little orange one there. Reporters Without Borders ranked Eritrea as their lowest country in the Press Freedom Index for 2013 at 179. Also, Freedom House published them at 194 on their own investigation. They also classed as not free. The rest of the PowerPoint will explain reasons as to why the country is ranked so low. Just to give you a quick overview of the country, Stock 2010 said that the entire population is 5 million. The capital city is Asmara, which has a population of 500,000, and it's run by a Republican government. Eritrea has always struggled for independence. Eritrea was under Italian colonial rule until World War II, when it was then merged with Ethiopia in 1952. In 1962, Eritrea had had enough and decided to fight against the Ethiopian government to become a separate country. After a long and bloody war, they defeated Ethiopia's northern armies in 1991. And they finally achieved formal independence in May of 1993. But despite ending the war with Ethiopia in 1981 and gaining their independence, another war began in 1998, killing hundreds of people. However, Freedom House stated that under the terms of a peace treaty signed in December 2000, both countries accepted an independent ruling that stood the common border. Ethiopia later renegated on the agreement. Unresolved grievances stemming from the broken peace deal have driven Eritrea's government fixation of national security and perpetrated the militarisation of the state. Due to the ongoing conflict and the present government within the country, many Eritreans try to leave. It is a one-party state with no privately owned media, and there are over 10,000 political prisoners for many reasons, including opposition, opposing the government, and forcing reporters to take on the role of opportunist facilitator. The population are forced to join the army for a given amount of time. It is a compulsory service issued by the government, and about 3,000 people try and flee each month because the conditions are so harsh in the country. The recent Lampedusa tragedy when the boat crashed into the sea was actually mainly Eritrean refugees trying to flee the country. There's some pictures. Eritrea is not a democracy. The only legal party is the People's Front for Democracy and Justice, created in 1994. Freedom House will call the government authoritarian since the end of the war. They are the only government in practice, and elections are controlled. The regional elections in 2004 were really controlled, and there was no choice offered. They just probably got on this one. And corruption is rife. People in favour of the government can profit from smuggling items into the country. The country ranks last in the world in press freedom, behind North Korea and Myanmar, and is the only country in Africa without an independent media outlet. Hundreds of journalists have been arrested, rights groups say, and foreign reporters have been kicked out. And in 2001, private press was completely closed by the government as it was deemed endangering for national security. The government's law does not allow independent media. It controls all broadcasting outlets. There is now also a widespread filtering on the internet, although some sites are blocked. The government controls the infrastructure of the internet as well and monitors online communication. Bloggers and web users have been threatened. Foreign media is there, but only for those who can afford it. What media do they have? They have 4 newspapers, the first being Halas Eritrea, which is surprisingly government-owned and published 3 days a week. The Eritrea Profile, which is again government-owned, published weekly and in English. The Tirikta, which is pro-government, usually weekly owned by the ruling party, and the Gillette, which is a weekly newspaper. There's one state-run television site known as RETV. And they have one official radio broadcaster known as the Voice of the Broad Masses of Eritrea. This is state-run again and operates 2 networks, programming in 11 languages. Despite their controlling government, people have found a way to get around it. For example, there is Radio Arena. Radio Arena broadcasts live from Paris and is a public radio. Its main target is to inform and entertain and educate the people of Eritrea. As independent media outlets are not allowed, the small station broadcast from Paris into the country of Eritrea in their native Tigrani language through shortwave radio. It began on June 15, 2009 with the support of Reporters Without Borders. The government has attempted many times to stop it getting into the country, such as jamming satellite transmissions, but they haven't managed it yet. Example of when Radio Arena sort of made a difference. When the tragedy of Lampedusa happened, the government's official coverage covered up the story, saying that they had tried to cross and leave the country illegally, and noting it was mostly East African migrants that had died, not specifying it was Eritreans to sort of calm people down and say it wasn't nice people there. It was designed to discourage more people from leaving. However, Radio Arena felt it was their duty to report the real story so that those who would hear it could, and they did, including testimonies from the survivors they sort of opposed against the government. One of the reasons for such a low ranking in press freedom indexes across the board is because of the treatment of journalists. Eritrea is one of the worst countries in the world for their treatment. A group of journalists arrested in 2001 remain imprisoned without charge. It is confirmed that 4 of them have since died. The Committee to Protect Journalists says that 28 journalists were in prison as of December 2012. And the Reporters Without Borders recorded that to date 28 journalists were in prison and 4 media assistants were also in prison. And I've just got 2 case studies of some journalists that were wrongly treated. The first one is Matibos Habti, who was the editor of Mekala until June 2000. He completed a year of military service, as I said earlier, as mandatory by the government. He was arrested upon his return and held secretly for 6 weeks. He was released, but imprisoned a few weeks later as part of the government's clampdown on independent press. And he's been held captive ever since, and no one knows where he is. And the second one is the co-founder of Statit, which is Fesaheh Yohannes, who died on the 11th of January 2007 as a result of horrific prison conditions in the remote Area jail in the northeast of the country. Like North Korea, Eritrea had government camps where they sent people, but actually worse than North Korea. People are just beaten and tortured, and it's disgusting. If you have time, go on YouTube and have a look, and you just, it's horrible. Anyway, and there's my list of references.